Welcome back to the Shock Absorber podcast, and as we just said, we are always ready, so I hope you're ready too for an amazing episode. And we've got Brayden here. Hello.
Hello.
How are you? How you going?
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Because we're going to be doing arts, as we've been doing the last couple of weeks, but primarily practice. And we decided to split these episodes into three because we talk about arts being word ministry, music ministry, and tech ministry all together. And we've talked about it in the last two episodes in our theology and strategy episodes where we've been delving into the arts team, and you as arts pastor are here to help us do that.
Yeah.
But before we begin, and we should say there's 3 episodes going to come out. So they'll be slightly shorter than we usually do, but there'll be 3 of them. But what we usually do is like do a cultural artifact or talk about something we're interested in. We're talking about music. We've talked about music a fair bit in the last 2 episodes as well. But I'm a big fan of music. Yeah. I can't play music anywhere near as well as you can. Yeah. But you've also gone to, like, especially this year, a lot of live performances.
Yes.
And live performances are the way that I really enjoy consuming music. Because
absolutely.
I think it's because I'll listen to an album sometimes and then I'm just like, oh, they can just take the art so much higher. And I think the interaction with the audience and stuff is so much more elevated, but there's so much more risk.
Yeah, well. I think one of my favorite things being playing live makes me interested. Like, I love, if I find a new band or a new song that I really like, the first thing I'll normally do from that is go and watch them play it live.
Same.
Because I want to see how they pull that off. I'm not actually that interested. Like, I am interested in, I love recorded music. I love, like, learning about the different ways that people have recorded things or the different interactions between those. The behind that music, was it behind the music or behind the album? Those series were really
the VH1
ones. Yeah, they were so sick.
Amazing.
Seeing like amazing albums put together. I do love that, but I love live. I love live.
I love live.
Oh, it's just it's the best.
It really is, because it's someone at a really high level of their art, but it's this interaction between the audience and the performers together, and it heightens both. Yeah. So if they're playing really well, it's a really, like, any of the live things that I've gone to are usually like high energy bands. So there's interaction. So as the crowd gets into it more, the band are into it more, like they're loving it as well. And so they play better, and they're more, because they've got all this underlying skill base of being amazing musicians, they can take it into different areas sometimes. Yeah. One of the reasons I love Led Zeppelin so much is the way they would just decide, we're going to jam in the middle of Dazed and Confused, and we're going to do this live, and it sounds amazing. And it, like, there's only like the front end and the back end of that jam is planned, and the rest of it is, they never know what's going to happen. Yeah. But they have so much confidence in each other because they have such great ability. Yeah. That they can create this amazing thing, and then Dazed and Confused on live albums is 20 minutes long. Yeah, because they're able to do that, and it's all seamless. Like, it sounds seamless. Now, some people like overdub and stuff. Yeah. We're talking about Rolling Stones last week, and my favorite album that they have is called Get Your Yah-Yahs Out, which is them on the live tour in 1968 of America. Yeah, but one of the big things apparently happened was they did a ton of overdubs on that after they recorded, because they didn't think the recording was good enough. But I think the thing that you hear in that album, for example, is the rawness. I think that's what I really like, the rawness. That's one of the reasons why Let There Be Rock is my favorite AC/DC album, because it sounds like there's all this buzzing and crackles and pops and stuff in the recording. Yeah. But they knew that, that's our best version. So we're gonna publish that one. Yeah,
I think as someone who plays music, I just love, one of the best experiences that I really enjoy about playing with music is the interaction between you and other people. And like, I grew up playing in a lot of bands, especially when you're in early high school and you don't necessarily have gigs or anything. You just like get together and just play. Yep. You just play and play and play and play and play. And I love that. And I love the relationship that kind of grows over having done that a lot together. I've like certain people at church or outside of church that I've just played with for years, and it just, you start to just understand each other in a way, and you just pick up on signs and what people are doing, and that kind of interaction is just so, I love it. It's like so good. It's super fun to get to play in that way, and once you are on that level, there's really nothing like doing that. So
I've always had a dream to start a band or be in a band, and I never did it. I never did it because I had a mate that was at high school who was he was good at guitar. You're like, yeah, let's start a band, but we never did it.
I just like, well, that was the thing. I always wanted to, and I just remember being, I don't remember where, I think I remember where we were driving. I was in the car with my mum. I don't know if I talked about this on my Chip Lunch. Maybe. I don't know. Cross plug. I've talked on Chip Lunch before. If you want to hear more about me.
Just a couple of times.
And we were driving, you know, what's the hill that's like as you're heading past here, Miranda, towards Cronulla, and it goes like down and you feel like the speed limit should be more than what it actually is?
Oh, on President Avenue.
Yeah, but that big hill.
Dipper.
Yeah.
Sorry, if anyone's listening that doesn't live in the Sutherland Shire of Sydney, it's just a big hill that goes, the road goes down and then up again.
I just remember I was in the car with, I think, at least my mum, and I just remember like, I had the same thing. Like I've always been obsessed with music. Me and my brother, brother especially, had just like love it. We would listen to it. Like, yeah, the amount of music, and not just current music, we went back and forth, like everything. And I just remember, I think I was in year 7 and we were driving down that hill. So I don't remember where we were driving. Yeah. And for some reason, I just went, hey mum, can I start getting guitar lessons? I don't know why. And she was like, yeah,
sure.
Yeah, sounds good. I was just like, it's crazy. You think of moments in your life that kind of like veer off.
Yeah.
Things. But yeah, it was just the decision. I was like, oh, I've always wanted to do this. Why am I not doing something about this? I remember I wanted to learn drums first, but that was off the table. It's too noisy, apparently. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be
That's
tough
a big
on
investment.
Parents.
That's tough. A big investment from parents.
Yeah, definitely. So like talking about live performances, let's see, can you give me like your favorite one ever?
I think I've been to like 11 or 12 this year.
Yeah, so this is my point. It's like for you.
Picking one is going to be very impossible. How about I put them in a couple of different buckets?
In the Mount Rushmore?
Oh, just like I'll go when I was early high school.
Okay.
I'll go Sentimental. Ooh. And I'll go in the last year.
Okay.
Is that okay?
No, it's fine. No.
So
no, it's not allowed.
In terms of like Sentimental, I remember going to see the Arctic Monkeys. I can't even remember what tour it was, but it was the first time I went to a concert where a whole bunch of school friends had all bought tickets. We were all in year 10 or year 9 and we all bought tickets to go and see them. We all lined up early. Yeah. We hung out for like hours beforehand. Someone brought a deck of cards. So we're like sitting in the line like hours and hours before the doors opened.
Yeah.
Got in early. We're all like at the front on the barrier for that band who were massive, like me and my friendship group. And that was before AM. This was like either Humbug or Suck It and See album. And like we were all in the front row. We were all like, it was just like surreal. And the cool thing about that was it was like a big group of us from school. All did the same thing. All went together. All were in bands together and all had a great time. And Violent Soho opened and Miles Kane opened as well. Oh yeah, that was excellent. Okay. Arctic Monkeys. So those are like Sentimental. I saw U2 on the Joshua Tree tour where they played Joshua Tree all the way through. And for me and me growing up, that was like my earliest memories of music are my dad playing U2 and stuff like that. So that was really special. Yeah. The other sentimental one for me is I saw Paul McCartney a couple of years ago, which was insane. Cool. Neil Young. I've seen Paul McCartney. I've seen Neil Young. Yeah. I've seen Roger Waters from Pink Floyd. Like there's just stuff like that where you're like they're at the end of their lives and have made music that obviously changed the world. So that's really special. And finally, I said the last year, didn't I? Mm-hmm. I think I've seen some amazing bands this year that have been excellent. Me and Joel are going to see the Hives in a couple of months, and that's going to be excellent. Yep. And with Fish as well, Ethan, that's going to be excellent. The one that like really has blown me away, and I've been blown away by lots of people in the last year, but I saw Jack White in December.
Oh, that would have been cool.
He's kind of like had a revival and come back to the light. I love all his solo stuff, but he's started playing like garage rock again. He was it was just him, drummer, bass player, keys player. And they were just like, it was like the energy was unbelievable. And it was at the Enmore, so it was like a smaller venue, and it was just like getting whacked in the, like, it was just like such energy for an hour. It was just like electric, and that was really cool. And again, another one of those bands that's kind of jamming off each other. Like he would start playing no set list, they're playing songs, they're going into other songs, he's covering Stooges, he's covering all kinds of things, and they're all just like flow. The thing that I really liked about that gig is there was no point where they went silent. So like in between, they would finish a song, but they wouldn't finish, they'd keep like just like keep
Noodling.
it going a little bit, and like either the drummer or someone would be doing something, and then they would go out of that into the next song, and they did that the entire time. So it was just like there's just something super like living about that, like, you know what I mean, like it never stopped, it just kind of kept flowing, and it was really like Jack White, the energy of Jack White as well, and he's an unbelievable guitar player, and they've got some unbelievable songs. He played stuff from his solo stuff, from Raconteurs, from Dead Weather, from White Stripes, and that was stuff I grew up listening to him go through that journey. So it was just awesome. In terms of like a rock and roll show, it was just like
that sounds
so
a lot
sick.
like him doing White Stripes, but in a different format. Like,
and I love jam bands, so I listen to a lot of stuff like that, and like it was so sick.
Well, because we've talked about the White Stripes Under Blackpool Lights DVD, was where there's a lot, and that show barely feels like it stops as well. It just goes one song to another. So he's obviously tried to recapture that.
Yeah, and I think he just knows he's performed for so long. He just he's crazy. He's so good.
Well, he's just so deep in the art. And the ability of performing live too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. I was in my favourites. There's a slightly sentimental one. Was the first concert I ever went to on my own with a friend, which was Audio Slave.
Oh yeah,
which is Rage Against the Machine with Chris Cornell as the singer.
R.I.P. He passed away 10 years ago yesterday.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Day recording. Anyway.
Well, look, no.
But
sorry
it was
to pull back the curtain and see the wizard. Sorry, it's not live, guys.
If you didn't know, it's a podcast, not live. That was just fun because Rage Against the Machine were one of the bands that I, like early high school, were like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Like I've never heard anything like this. And I was fascinated by them, that being able to combine like rock / metal with rap. Yeah. They're probably the best band that's ever done that, I think, because of Zach De La Rocha as the singer.
Yeah, I'm sad I never got to see Rage.
That's a regret.
I saw Tom Morello play with Bruce Springsteen, and I saw
Tom Morello is the Rage Against the Machine guitarist, we should say.
Brad Wilk, is that the
He's
drummer?
the drummer,
Yeah, I saw him play with Foo Fighters.
Yeah.
And Tom Comerford, I think, played with Foo Fighters. So I've seen everyone but Zach.
Yeah, okay. But it's Tim Comerford.
Tim, sorry.
That's right. But yeah, that was my early high school band. Like that kind of, some call it new metal. Like I was into Limp Bizkit and Rage Against the Machine.
As I think a lot of people your age.
Well, they were. And yeah, Rage Against the Machine were before Limp Bizkit. But there was just a lot of anger. Yeah. And it's something I've tried to work out. Why? Well, I don't know if I was angry, but why did that music appeal to me? Yeah. Being angry. Yeah. But Rage Against the Machine also just... not that I agreed with it all. They're very politically active, and it opened my eyes to why people were doing it. I think that's interesting. So, Zach, the band Rage Against the Machine broke up. Zach left the band, and so they got Chris Cornell in as a singer, but they renamed. They didn't want to be like, we're Rage Against the Machine, we're a new band. Yeah, and so that was really cool to go to that and just experience those guys, someone that I'd grown up with, and then like just to kind of map the bands that I was into in high school. I think it was at the end of year 10, I got into a band called The Darkness, which is, you would have heard, like, people would have heard the song I Believe in a Thing Called Love. But they went through this gigantic revival. So we talked about the Strokes last time and the Hives and that garage rock thing, even the White Stripes are part of that. But The Darkness were kind of a throwback to to late 70s, early 80s. Yeah. But they became really famous really quickly in England for some reason. I don't know why, but they're very funny. They have a really good sense of humour. But getting into them, I found out what they were all into, and so that really brought back me to understand like Led Zeppelin, AC/DC and stuff. So The Darkness were like this new band of that. But then I looked at all the history of those bands and went back into blues and all that stuff from late high school. So that was cool. Reason I'm saying this, one of the best concerts I've ever been to is The Darkness.
Yeah.
It was at Luna Park.
Oh, the Big Top?
Yeah.
Luna Park?
And it was on a Good Friday.
Oh.
So we did Good Friday at church.
Yeah.
And then where we used to go to church at Guyman Anglican, we would go to one of the person's house for hot cross buns.
Mm.
And at that time we had asked one of our friends who was into dancing, a very big dancer, to bring pants that we could wear to the concert. So because Justin Hawkins, the singer of The Darkness, wears like cat suits, and he's heavily influenced by who's the singer of Van Halen?
David Lee Roth?
Yes, he's very heavily influenced by David Lee Roth, who used to wear cat suits and stuff.
Yeah.
So we wore like these outrageous pants. We drove into the city, caught the train across, and the concert, they just released their second album, The Darkness, and the concert was more than 2 hours long. They played almost every song on both albums. And then they also threw in AC/DC, like Highway to Hell and Thunderstruck and stuff, because they'd been doing that. And it was just such a great experience. Like, it was just, it still lives long in the memory. The three of us went to that, and it was really, really fun. But then I'd also, like, just as a second note, like, I've seen the Hives twice, and they have been unreal. So there we go.
Well, we look forward to making it three times a charm.
Three times a charm, apparently. But I think that one thing we're saying there is the connecting theme that music has. So whether it's with the audience or you said like with your band members.
Yeah, and with memories.
Yeah.
Yeah, and certain times of your life.
And there's a thing that we've talked about, that God has made music to be, there's an element of spirituality in there that it hits you harder.
Yeah.
And there's an emotional element linked to it, but and you know, like they use, like on a sad ad or something, they use this music to really encourage emotion out of it. But I think that's the thing, is that God has made music to be a connecting thing. And as we've talked about theologically, it's important that we recognize that, but also do it in a way that leads people at church rather than it's a performance. Because we're talking about performances here, but leading at church is very different. Having said that, we're now going to talk about how we're going to do that. We do that in practice. So we talked about theology, we talked about strategy and why strategy is so important, but it allows us to be flexible in our practice. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And what I thought to begin with is the kind of subheading we've got here is preparation and intentionality. But really the question I thought was like, if you're a band leader and you do that a lot, how would you prepare for a weekend of leading music at one or multiple gatherings?
Yeah. So this has looked very different to me over the years, which is something that I think is a blessing for me of getting to grow into the role that I'm in.
And a point about being a flexible practice too.
Yeah, and something that's been, I think, that I really cherish that God's given me is I've been a band member. I've been a band in this, at Soul Revival, I've been a band member. I've been a band leader. I've been a gathering coordinator. And now I am the pastor of this. So I enjoy getting to do those things, but I'm also have been those things and are those things across the weekend.
Started in the mailroom and now you're CEO.
Well, basically, yeah. And it's actually something that I really cherish, is that I've gotten to do that.
You've done every
and
role.
have that journey across arts ministry here at Solis. And this weekend, I am band leading on Friday.
Okay.
I am just a band member on Saturday, and I am band leading on Sunday morning at Miranda. So I get to live that journe this weekend, which is really great. And I think we were at regional conference this week, and someone was talking on leadership, and the person who was up the front was really encouraging the people in the room to say, like, you're all leaders at church. Have an area in your life where you're not a leader. Have somewhere in your life where you're not leading. And that is something actually really beneficial for you. Don't just have every activity that you participate in, you're the leader of, which can happen when church is your whole life and you're a senior minister, and like you could see how quickly you would be leading most of the things that you're involved in, like Bible study or obviously Sundays and things like that. Whereas I was reflecting on that, thinking through the fact that I really enjoy that I am not leading on Saturday. I'm coming under Zach's leadership, who's band leading, and I get to play bass. And I actually really love the weeks where I have my responsibility is a little bit lower and I can just step into things and just play. And I really enjoy that. I was a member of the music team when I was at college. And I enjoyed just getting to rock up and play guitar. I'm like, oh, how good's this? I don't have to pick songs. I don't have to worry about keys or anything. So there's different levels to things. But I think it's good to recognize those levels. How would I prepare for a weekend? I think is that the question you're asking, Joel? Like, how do I step into that? So I'm leading this weekend. The first thing that I'll normally try and do, and I'll try and do this early in the week, hopefully, is read the passage.
Oh, if that's coming up.
And that's helpful for... if I'm preaching, hopefully I've already looked a little bit at the passage, but if I'm leading, it's just helpful to get in that headspace of like, what are we going to be looking at on the weekend? Even if you don't need to just directly go, well, it talks directly about this, so I'm only going to pick songs that use this word, or we're in the Old Testament this week, so I'm just going for songs that specifically focus on just God, like, you know what I mean? Like, but it's just helpful to get you in the mind space and understand, because as we chatted about, especially in the first episode of this series when we're talking about theology, everything works together in the service, whether it's the prayer, the service leader, the Bible reading, us playing music, the person preaching, we're all pulling in the same direction, hopefully.
Well, because that word-based
exactly
ministry, right?
Yeah, and it's all flowing out of the Bible reading. So that's normally where I try and start when I'm band leading. The next thing for me, obviously, is a big part of leading is the song selection. So our band leaders pick the songs here at Soul Revival. I know there's different ways that different churches do that. Some churches, the senior minister will sit down and just pick all the songs for the entire year. Like, and there's other ones where maybe different members, it'll be different levels of collaborative. Some people like to roster an entire year's worth of songs, an entire term's worth of songs. Maybe you do it a month at a time. Maybe you do it a week at a time. Different approaches for that work. I would just like to espouse that sitting down and rostering an entire year's worth of songs is just as spiritual as deciding on the day what you're going to do. Just as spirit inspired, just as long as you're prayerfully coming to it and thinking through intentionally what you're doing, either or approach, I'm all for. I'm especially as I think I was more of a flexible approach growing up, as I enjoyed getting to do it the week of. But the thing that I've really learned, especially with working with, this is normally the case for younger musos, but specifically with people who have done things less, they really appreciate preparation
and
given a bit of time. So I roster the entire Friday gathering term in terms of songs before the term starts. And I've only started doing that in the last year, and I do it specifically so that especially my younger music members can sit down and learn songs beforehand and practice, and that really helps them. And so I appreciate both. For a Saturday night or a Sunday, well, I'm band leading on Sunday, I'll pick the week of. Try and pick earlier in the week so people can have a look at things, but that's what we do. Both systems have their positives and negatives, but I think it's about recognizing what works best for what kind of you're trying to work towards. On Friday, I'm trying to build up especially new and younger musicians, and so a little bit more preparation will help. On Friday, whereas our other gatherings, a little bit more experienced, the flexibility of being able to pick through and think through that intentionally and giving a few more people voices, especially all the band leaders' voices in how they want to do that, is something really to be cherished as well. So
does the number of songs factor into that as well?
We started off singing 3 songs at Solis. Now we sing 4.
Yeah, we usually like if I talk about Saturday night, we'll do 3 at the start of the gathering and 1 at the end.
Yeah,
but that's not prescriptive, right?
No. For years we did 2 at the start and 1 at the end.
Yeah.
Until, I don't even know, maybe when we came back from COVID. I think it was really recently. I think there's no prescription on how many songs you sing. Sometimes we'll sing more, sometimes we'll sing less. Over our Christmas gatherings, we'll normally add a few extra carols in.
That does happen.
And Easter, sometimes we'll add a few extra songs, or sometimes if there's a different type of service or maybe a baptism service, things like that, maybe we'll take one out. It just depends. But that's currently what we on Friday night we do 2. We used to do 1, now we do 2. So it's flexible in that way. You have a standard, and I think that's helpful across all of arts to have standard ways that you go about things, and it just helps people plug into the different ways of doing things. Especially if you've got people like we do serving across multiple gatherings. Yep. It can be very tricky to do things multiple ways across a weekend. People are trying to help and jump in, and all of a sudden it's different every time you rock up. That can be very tricky. So I definitely like a continuity in that, but it's always open for discussion in terms of what we would like to do in terms of number of songs. But yeah, we'll generally do 3 at the start and 1 at the end at Kirrawee on Saturday night and Sunday morning. Miranda is the same, and then Cronulla, it depends on who's playing music that week. Sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 4, just depending on who's covering there. In terms of my song selection process, and I know this is a little bit different for people, but I generally have 3 criteria that I like to think about, and it helps me have a more informed position when I'm coming to what songs we're going to sing that weekend. First is the passage, as was mentioned. That's a big, that's what we're focusing on for the week, is God's word, and you want things to flow out of that, and hopefully everything from the service will be flowing out of what God has said to us through his word, and then through the preaching on top of that. So that's one of the factors that I'm going to use. The other thing is the flow of the service. So it's important, I think, when you're coming to music ministry, in pastoral ministry, in congregational singing, is to understand that it's not one song, then one song, then one song. They don't exist in isolation. And they also are in an order. Like
intentionally.
Yeah, exactly. And Joel and I have just been talking a little bit about concerts we've really enjoyed where things kind of flowed together. And
it's like picking a set list in a sense, isn't it?
But I do enjoy picking a set list. Was always a fun part of being in a band. Like you're trying to throwing ideas about where you want to hit things. And yeah, it's a little bit like that. But the set list isn't just the songs.
Okay.
The set list is your set isn't just okay. We're playing 3 songs and we're playing 3 songs. It's understanding the ideal flow of a service.
Yeah. Okay.
And so you welcome. We're all here at church. This is again. These 3 criteria are descriptive of what I do, but it's not prescriptive for every situation, and things will change. And ideally, these things I think about, but things as we'll see, things look different. But the flow of a service, like in my head, we're all here together at church. How great is it? We're all here together. That's your welcome. You're going to have a welcome from a service leader. Then you're going to have a song. Then you're going to have a song. Then you're going to have a song. Then you're going to have confession. If that is what it looks like for, I'm just like naming a bulk standard service.
That's usually what we do.
Yeah, yeah. So in my head, I'm thinking we've got welcome, isn't it all great? We're here to church, and we've got confession.
They're like the 2 start and end points.
Yeah, they're start and end points for the pillars of where we're going. So in terms of energy and what we're thinking about, you've got a lot of information in between there, but they're where you want to start, and that's where you're going to end. And so you can either let that inform you or you cannot. Again, like these are just criteria that I use to help me think about how I'm picking things, but it's not the be all and the end all. Because another factor, and the third factor I normally think through, is what band do I actually have? It needs to be a factor of who is actually playing. Yeah. Do I have drums this week? Yes. Do I not have drums this week? Do I have bass and drums? Do I have 3 acoustic guitars? Do I have no instruments at all and it's just 3 choir singers?
A couple of lutes.
Yeah, exactly. Are these songs, because there's great songs thematically that would fit amazingly, but are we actually going to be able to pull it off with the resources that we have?
Yeah.
And I think that's a great thing to factor in, especially, okay, do I have younger musicians where more familiar songs will be worth picking, and I'm not just going to pick 3 songs that we've only started playing recently. What's the congregation look like? I don't want to just be picking all songs that were written in mid-2000s. I want to help stretch things a little bit and help love an intergenerational ministry. And I think the important thing for me is, we chatted a bit about the youth band last week, I want to make them learn how to play a hymn.
Right.
Normally, every time I'm on with the youth band, we're playing one hymn. And it's mainly because otherwise they might not. And we're just going to lose playing those
they
songs.
would never, I mean, even I wouldn't come into contact with the hymn unless I was at church.
Exactly.
Example.
So there's things like that I'm factoring in occasionally as well. There's a lot of things, but I just find those three things of the passage, the flow of the overall service, and who's actually in the band help me kind of just focus and not get in a rut of maybe picking the same songs over and over again during a series where you're like, okay, we're in the Old Testament, so we're going to focus on how good God's character, and so you just pick songs off that for 10 weeks. Well, that's probably not that helpful. Well, it might be. Depends. But they're just factors that help me think through what I'm doing. And the flow of the service thing as well. You've got the song, sorry to get out of order of those 3 points, but you've got the song after the sermon. So it's a response to the sermon. So that song looks very different to the first song. Oh, we're here. We're together as church. How good is it to be together as God's people? They can look very different specifically. So, I like to use those things to help me pick songs and help me vary what I'm looking at and how I'm feeling. And it also kind of just takes the responsibility and the personality off me, because I don't want me band leading to become, okay, well, it's Brayden's week, so Brayden personally is going to pick these types of songs because blah, blah, blah. And that's the way it's
style.
Exactly. And I'm all for a certain style in a ministry, and that's something I think the first thing you learn when you're learning music ministry is how to play something.
Yeah.
Is like what to play. Is like, okay, how do I physically get this to happen? And the second step for music ministry is, okay, now that I can play it, how am I going to play it? I think that's a big shift that's really, really fun, and something I'm trying to figure out at the moment is, now that we've got a lot of people doing things and being intentional, how are we going to do them? Which is something I'm going to be chatting to people. I'm chatting with people at the moment, which is really cool. But yeah, the actual makeup of the band is really important in that factor. I think people can sometimes discount how important who you have playing is for the makeup of how you're going to be able to put things together
and lead the congregation.
Yeah, and it's just what's helpful leading.
Because people are giving up their time, first of all, to play.
Yeah,
and we're really thankful for that. But also, that's just one element. Also, that you might have some ideas. You're like, I want to do this, I want to do that, and they might not just be at that level of competency, which is okay.
Or just having some pre-planning if you want to.
Right, but it's also, you're not leading. I feel like you're perhaps not leading the congregation well if the music is muddled or not very clear.
Oh, if people aren't confident on what they're doing, then how can you, up the front, who've been practicing for a couple of hours, how can you expect the people who've just walked in and maybe have less musical knowledge, some of them would have more, but maybe less, to be confident in what you're doing?
Yeah, and that can be taken too far to go down the professional route that we talked about, or creating this product that has to be amazing. Now, I think there's plenty of grace in that too. We had, I think recently, someone just started the song in the wrong key or something, like, oh no, that's wrong, and everyone's like, just had a little chuckle, like, yeah, that's cool, and then start again, and that's I think that's a really beautiful thing to go, that we thank you for serving us by being up there. Oh, you made a mistake, that's cool.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, oh, now it's right. Yeah, cool, we know it. Like, I think that's the line. It's probably a fine line that you have to tread there, of like wanting to do a good job of producing reasonably sounding music to lead the congregation to sing.
Yeah.
But also not turning into, this is I think what you said before, like, what are you driving at? Like, what are you actually trying to achieve here?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's about coming to God with what you have. So you can be I've heard some churches put it as being like dedicated to excellence, or dedicated to not being distractions, which I think is a big part of it. Is you want to glorify God in what you're doing, you want to do a good job, you want to help love the people you're there with, to help them sing and do it in a good way, but also at the same time, we're a family, and we're also coming to this as a group of volunteers who love and know each other, but are coming to it from that perspective.
And we make mistakes, dude.
Yeah, make mistakes because that's human and that's life. And so I think that's the cool kind of tension that I hold with it, and I think a lot of people do, is like there's certain levels where we're going to be able to do things and bring things together, but also just come to God with what you have. There's nothing. The person jumping up who's been learning guitar for a month but is filling a hole in that ministry because no one could play in a certain way is glorifying God just as much as the person who went to the con and is stepping up and has played 1,000 times and is doing it in that kind of way. It's both serving, to serve God and love
others.
Love others in what they're doing. Yeah. And both of those things, no matter the outcome, are faithful.
Yes.
In doing that. And I think it's about approaching it in that kind of way.
Yeah, I think that's really cool.
Yeah. And the last thing is just like picking keys that people can sing. I think this will connect well to the next kind of point of thinking about how you think about music ministry in terms of, we chatted about this a little bit in the first episode of this series, of church music not being a performance or entertainment. So it's different to the concerts that we were starting talking about at the top of this podcast, because it's not entertainment.
Yep.
Ultimately, like people can preach a big thing about music being art, and it is. But when you pay to go see a live show, you're paying to be entertained. Like that's what you're doing.
It's a different context for sure.
Yeah, it's a different context. And so church isn't that. So I can wrestle with this a lot. I have a voice when I'm singing that's a little bit lower. It's not crazy lower than most guys sing, but it's a little bit lower. So if I was picking keys for me, they would not be the keys that we often pick at church. But it's not about what makes me sound great. It's about what everyone can actually sing comfortably. And that, I think, is a big thing. So picking the keys in music is a big thing. Now, there's certain limitations with instruments, but hopefully musically you can get to a point where you can play in lots of different keys. Guitars have been helped by this. And if you know what a capo is, you can just chuck that on.
Sometimes that happens when someone starts the second song, they've got the capo on the guitar and they're like, oh, hang on.
And
they drop that off.
I'm a fiend for that. I've stitched up Courtney so many times. We used to play at Woolaware Public, when we were down at Woolaware for our Cronulla gathering all the time, and I apologise to Courtney every time. I'm a fiend for either leaving a capo on or putting it in the wrong spot. But now I hardly play with a capo, so that helps. Just picking keys and remembering that you're picking things. You're making deliberate choices, whether it's the key or when you go into band practice. So that next step of, okay, we've picked the songs, we've sent them out. Now we're rocking up to practice beforehand. When you're leading, you're picking the key and you're making intentional choices, not for musically what's going to be the most interesting for you, musically what's going to make my voice sound the best, musically what am I going to make, what's going to make me look like an awesome guitar player, musically what am I going to be able to use this new flashy guitar pedal on to make it sound cool because I bought it, and so I'm trying to justify me buying it. Or where's this sick drum fill going to be able to fit in? Musically, the biggest factor that you're making decisions is, how am I going to help people to sing faith? How am I going to help people to sing full stop? How am I going to help people to connect with the lyrics that are on the screen? How am I going to help people connect with what has been spoken about in the service as a whole? And so those kind of are the big overlying decisions. Whereas if I was approaching it from a performative kind of space, it'd be like, well, they've paid to see me perform. How are we going to make these decisions that help us to do that end goal? It's just two different end goals, basically. And those are the decisions that kind of go into making that happen. So in that step from picking songs to making practice happen to actually playing at the service, that is the end goal. It's people singing, people connecting with the lyrics, and people connecting with the overall word of God as it is read out from Scripture.
That's cool.
And it's just a different shift of mindset. Like I stepped back into that mindset after playing live for a long time, and yeah, again, it's a different thing. Like if you've got the school crew who are playing for year 9 music, a lot of the things that they're learning is how to play in front of people and how to perform. The person who's stepping out of as a gigging musician, or maybe someone who plays acoustic covers at the pub, it's a different kind of mindset of the way that you're approaching that than it is to playing congregationally, leading people in singing in that way.
Yeah, totally. I was just going to ask you in terms of it's cool to hear how much you think it through, but also your song choice is determined by who you have on your team that week and who are going to be playing. How do you, like, is there something there that you go, do I need a drummer this week, and you pull them in, or do you just go, this is all we've got on and that's what I'm going to work with?
I think that's a mixture of that's like a resource question.
Yeah.
So I think it would be different for different. It is different for different ministries, and it is different for different gatherings across Soul Revival. So like there's different people who volunteer at different gatherings, and therefore some have more X or Y. So that would look different, or availabilities for people is different, X or Y. Maybe you've got a drummer who could play every week, or maybe you've got a drummer who can play once a month, or maybe you've got no drummers. And I think that's something across lots of different music ministries, and it's something that's changed over Soul Revival growing and planning other gatherings and looking different in terms of just the resources of doing things and people's availability within those resources. I think, like my preference, I love playing with people, so I love playing with a big band, but it doesn't necessarily suit every week, and sometimes it's nicer to just have one person with an acoustic guitar. It doesn't change the overall, like it changes the overall sound and mood of things, but that's a good thing. And I like having the shift in between, but it really just normally depends. As the music team's gotten bigger, I think it depends mainly on resourcing.
Well, talking about music team though, like how do you start adding people to a music team?
Yeah.
So we talked about there is a certain level, obviously, a certain level of competency that you want in there. But I would feel like that is probably not the number one reason or the number one filter that you use to say, yeah, we'd love you to be part of the ministry, like, and this is our process. But how does that kind of come about if someone wants to play, they say, oh, I'm actually quite good at guitar. And you're like, I've never seen you play before, for example. Like, what's the process that you kind of try and implement in order to, first of all, get them onto the team or get them part of it, and then say, yes, we'd love you to be part of this ministry? Because you don't want to turn people away, but you also don't want to be allowing everyone in. Yeah. Because it could be a distraction, like you said before.
Yeah, I think I'm sure Stu or others have talked about conviction, character, and competency before. And it's the same thing with music ministry across, or arts ministry in general. Your conviction is the most important thing. I have lots of conversations. I have the blessing of looking after our Friday night gathering, and there's a core of non-Christians who come along, and they enjoy the Friday gathering, though maybe not sometimes the sermon, but enjoy getting to come along. And a whole bunch of them have been like, can I play music? Can I Bible read? Can I pray? And they're great, but they're not Christian. And so it's I've had that conversation. I had that conversation a couple of weeks ago with like, okay, you want to Bible read in church, but you're not Christian. What are we actually doing as in the Bible reading at church? Well, we're not just getting up and reading a book in front of everyone. You know what I mean? Like, it's the same with praying. You're actually doing that as a congregation. You're getting up and representing the congregation as you read from God's word. As the difference between praying by yourself at home and getting up and praying in front of the service is you're representing the congregation as we pray together. And the same thing with music. You're jumping up as a member of our congregation and leading us as the people of God in singing. And so, in terms of conviction, being a Christian is part of that. And that, there's some amazing musicians at church that aren't Christians. And I would love for them to be Christian, because it would be great, but they're not. So
that's also not what we're doing at church, is it?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's an important line to draw. Like, it is the most important line to draw is, are you convicted that Jesus Christ is King? Are you convicted that he came is the Son of God, died on a cross and rose again. That conviction is a very important part of the way that we help and serve each other in this ministry. And that's the first kind of, are they a Christian? And I'm sure for lots of people that sounds pedestrian, but it's a conversation I have on Friday all the time. It's like lots of people don't make it through the first hula hoop.
Which is also lovely they want to, but
it's
the right
awesome
thing to do.
They want to,
sure.
but conviction is an important part. The other thing is character.
Which is what the first one influences anyway, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully.
Yeah. Well, that's is it? That's the thing.
Exactly.
You say you're a Christian, but is it influencing your character?
And that's a big thing. As we've said, a lot of the arts ministry is up the front ministry. And so therefore we need people to be not only professing faith, but living it out. Like it says in James, you want work without deeds is dead. And faith without deeds is dead, and vice versa. Like you need to be not just professing a faith, but living it out, living out that faith that you profess. And so character is a big, big part of that. Can you imagine if you had someone up there leading music, but at the same time they're having a go at the tech team? They're okay. You've walked up. Oh, can someone grab me a mic? Can someone grab me a music stand? Can someone set up my music for me? Can someone plug this in? Like treating people like that, or just character things that don't align with the values that you profess. And
and there's a lack of humility too.
Yeah, exactly. And so character is a big thing across all of ministry. It's the same thing with youth. You'd feel like with a youth leader or a kids leader, you don't just want them to be biblically convicted in that way, but you want their character to show the life they're trying to live out. Yep. And like that can be tricky. People have ups and downs. People have bad moments and good moments. People have overtired moments, like, or just when, like, we're all doing life together, and that's part of it. But overall, does your character reflect your conviction? Is a big important thing. And the last one is competency. And competency, like we've said, can look like lots of different things. We mentioned both the person who's just started learning guitar and the person from the con serving faithfully if they're giving what they have. And that can be, and that is faithful service to a need. But competency also is tricky in terms of not being, specifically in music ministry, and not being distracting in terms of needing to be, it's hard when you're dealing with a ministry where you need to be at a certain level to do it. And people have to invest that time into doing it. And my thing with competency mainly is, as long as I'm seeing people work towards something, then I'm very happy for them to be up there. But if you're not working towards anything in terms of competency, then that's a conversation we're going to need to have.
With music, it's also something that you almost have to practice at home.
You do,
too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You totally need to. And that's more what I'm pointing out. If I have someone that's who is not putting the time and effort into it that they need to, then that's going to be a problem. And so, like, I work with lots of people who are quite low competency, especially people who are just starting playing. And that's great because I'll just take that into account and give you the tools to hopefully work towards something. And that'll be part of needing to factor that in and give them time and hopefully put them in a situation where they're going to be able to succeed. But you can't have an entire team of people where you're trying to build that up. There's a certain level of competency that you need throughout the entire team to help build up people within that. And thankfully we have lots and lots of amazing people who are very, very competent, whose conviction is great and character is excellent, and that helps bring that up as well. I think, lots of people can find themselves in situations where maybe they have someone massively competent who doesn't have the conviction or the character, and that can be a very tricky thing because it's a lot easier to see that kind of thing because lots of people participate in playing music outside of church. I think you might have lots of people in our lives who would be amazing tech people, would be amazing Bible readers, who would be amazing prayers, who would be amazing preachers, but they don't necessarily show off that skill, and so you're not stressed about oh, okay, there's this person that's lacking conviction and character, but they seem really competent. You don't really see that across. Or it might be harder to see. And so, yeah, in music ministry, it's those three things. Once someone gets brought to that, we'll chat about that in the staff meeting, and then we'll chat to the relevant gathering coordinator, and they'll trial that person out. Basically, just put them in that situation, see how they go, and then have a chat to them after that process. Yeah, that's kind of introducing new people.
Yeah, and so, I mean, that's the cool thing that you have at Friday night, where it's kind of like a bit of a proving ground, isn't it? It's a lot more flexible. It's a lot more, there's less pressure.
Yeah, exactly.
Too.
Exactly.
And that's, I mean, that's one of the absolute blessings and beauty of having the Friday night gathering is as we're utilising that as using the shock absorber model to give young people a voice. It's their service, which you said last week.
Yeah.
You see them as seeing it as their service. So they get to step up and service lead. It's light leadership, as we're talking about, but service lead, do the slides, do sound, all those things of like actually the service. So they are being, in a sense,
and not that they don't have ownership over Sunday or Saturday if they go to other services, but Eth or I are not, we aren't the Friday gathering. We're just helping facilitate it happening. We're all the Friday gathering that are hanging out there. And so it's a really cool space we have for them to step into. And like you said, it's really just less pressure. And it's only really less pressure because it's their space. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's only really less pressure on them because they're comfortable.
Yeah.
It's no more their space than Saturday or Sunday. But if you're more comfortable, then there's less pressure. Then you can step into that and build up that competency in that type of
and
place.
not be so afraid of making mistakes.
And like I remember being a young musician and being stressed out of my mind. It's a weird kind of dynamic where you both love doing what you're doing, you're trying to get there, but you're also just like stressed because you don't want to stuff it up and you don't want to make mistakes. Yeah. And it's just a space where you're like, hopefully a little bit less pressure.
But it gives them the reps to go and step up into services later on the weekend if they're able to, eventually, because they've got this kind of intentionality, first of all, like you're saying, and even that you're still doing that in a lower scaled environment in the Friday night gathering, but they can go and do that in other, we are training up a younger generation. And we're doing that because we believe in the shock absorber principles that we have of having a top up and bottom down, is that you're still leading that, but you're allowing them to come up and say, and the youth band was a perfect example of that a couple of weeks ago, when you let them run it all by themselves. But that's because you'd done it at Friday, and you'd done that, you'd kind of staged it to a way of like, I'm leading it. Okay, you see how it's done now. Yeah. I think it might have been 3 or 4 times, and you're like, your turn now. Yeah. But there's so much in that. So not only are they upskilling in a sense of getting just more comfortable, next time they do it, they're even more confident. Yeah. And then they'll get a time where they're overconfident and something won't work. Yeah. But that's okay because they've built up this, you could say a body of work kind of thing of doing it already. But then also the fact that we're modeling intergenerationality and the shock absorber by having young people lead us in the service, but based on what we say, it's not a performance. It's they are leading us as entire congregation right now, and they're doing it in a way that is again helping us engage with the word-based ministry again. Yeah,
and I think you're also helpfully, and whether this with the youth band or anyone who's trying to work with competency, you're also teaching the congregation how to love and accept and work through being in situations where people are bringing their best but maybe it isn't landing. And that's a lesson that a congregation needs to learn, is how do we react in this situation? And I think it's the easiest example for that is tech, where like you say you miss a slide or something plays that shouldn't be playing, you feel 100 eyes just like
they all turn to you, because I do the slides sometimes. Yeah, they and all look at you.
But then you'll have Jai up preaching and make a joke about it and say, oh, thanks so much, Joel, for serving us in this way. You know what I mean? You're trying to teach the congregation how to do that at the same time. And I think the youth band's a really good example because people generally give a lot of grace to those crew, as they should. But also it teaches them to give grace
to others.
Yes. And I think
exactly.
that's something that I have seen and can be really powerful when you see a church family rally in that kind of way, you know what I mean? And step up and encourage one another through that. Like, I'm sure you would have got a little bit, like Joel preached his first sermon on a Saturday night a couple of weeks ago. And I think people will generally give a lot of grace through that and be encouraged. Like they're encouraged, you're encouraging them, and they're encouraging you. And I think the same thing with competency of music ministry is just can be so powerful.
I was blown away by how many people encouraged me, and I think it's a similar thing of, and they're very thankfully to our brother Jai, who's set it up. Going, I've known Joel for a very long time, and he's preaching sermon, which I'm really excited about. But he set it up in a way, a similar thing you were saying of like, we're all doing this as a family, and if you're making it a professional product, the stakes are much higher. Yeah. So you could make it sound as professional as possible, but if it's within this context of, if we make a mistake, we love you anyway. Yeah. I think that it's very different. Yeah. And we're not consuming church in a way we're participating and serving in church. Yeah. Which I believe, and I think you do too, of what that Bible calls us to do, rather than only put on a professional product, because that's what God wants. I don't know, like, I think God wants competency, like you're saying, but not before character and conviction.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's why it's a really helpful model to use when people are trying to be asking to be part of a ministry. Yeah,
or even just existing within that ministry.
Right. Yeah, good point.
He's always bringing it back to that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that point you're saying, like the youth band are modeling those 3 C's to the congregation, that we should, that's how we should think of ourselves as well. Yeah. Yeah. Am I convicted? And what is my character like right now? Yeah. Because if I am just expecting a professional product, my character will be like, this sucks.
Yeah, exactly.
And then what's our competency of a Christian? Are we loving people?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's what's really exciting about the way that we are looking at this arts ministry as a whole, but also music, of we can be really good, but also it's more of what we're seeing through we're seeing it through the lens of God's word. Yeah. It's almost like in contrast to, it could be more of a human view of like, it's just about me or how we look as a church.
That attitude of like almost I'm being robbed of something if someone's doing something poorly. Yeah. Like I'm
robbed of the good product.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm missing out because this person has stuffed up this, instead of thinking through the way that we're one body working together to help glorify Christ, and they're giving it a crack to try and love you.
And if someone stuffs up, just go, hey man, thanks for playing. Yeah. And sometimes they'll go, I stuffed up. I'm like, but you're still up there doing it. So
and you think about what a powerful witness that is, because other situations where you're doing stuff like that, you wouldn't get the same response. So therefore, it can just highlight the way that Christ has changed our relationships even more, even more powerfully.
It's that transformative power.
Exactly.
We're actually modeling that, and the Spirit is doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, this has been fun.
This has been excellent.
Thank you.
We should just talk about music ministry every week.
You got your own spin-off podcast.
Yeah. It's called Chip Lunch. No, I'm kidding.
No, we don't talk about music as much there. But
this has been great. Yeah, thanks so much, Joel.
No, well, again, I always appreciate the way that you're thinking about how you're leading your ministry.
Yeah, and this is just the start of a journey. I've been a part of the music ministry here at Soul Revival for a long time, and it has changed and built over those time periods, and I'm excited to see what God does through us next. I'm definitely thinking through a few things. We're organising an arts training day later on in the year. I've been chatting, and I'm going to grab my band leaders together to have a chat before we go away, which is really encouraging to get to spend time together and get to hang out. I'm greatly appreciative of all the people who make music ministry happen every weekend here at Soul Revival. It's really encouraging to see the amount of effort, thought, time, and planning. Like we talked a little bit about, my thought of coming in on how I would prepare a weekend, but we normally have at least 3 or 4 people doing that. probably more than that every weekend, which
Yeah.
is really humbling
Yeah.
to think about the way that people serve and love us, the hours people practice and things.
Good character.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, I feel very humbled getting to be a part of this ministry. And so I love getting to talk about it as well. But there's more things coming in the future, and I'm excited to see where God takes us.
Yeah, that's mad. That's a great way to finish. Thank you very much, Brayden. And thank you to everyone listening or watching. Hope it's been really valuable to you to kind of think through music ministry or wider arts ministry yourself. We're going to do another episode next week, either on Word or Tech. We haven't decided which, but we'll do one
Put
of
it
the
in the poll.
one of the other. Yeah, we can put it in
the
poll.
comments.
Tell me which one you want to do first. But if you do have any thoughts or queries, or like just want to comment on what we're talking about, or it's it's contrast to something that you usually do in your ministry, we'd love to hear from you. Email me, joel@shockabsorber.com.au. I will reply, and we will bring any questions you have to the podcast. But with that, once again, thank you, Brayden.
Thank you, Joel.
We finish with a one way.